in no excuses. The power of self-discipline, Brian Tracy, begins with a truth that every great life, achievement, or revolution has been built upon: the ability to do what must be done, whether or not you feel like it. The book dismantles the fantasy of instant success, reminding readers that talent, luck, and even intelligence fade behind the simple, timeless principle of discipline, the act of mastering oneself before attempting to master anything else. Tracy's life itself exemplifies this principle. Born into poverty and working menial labor jobs, he transformed his destiny not by waiting for opportunity, but by disciplining his thoughts and actions toward growth. This personal transformation became his lifelong mission: to help others realize that success is predictable, not accidental. It is a formula that rewards consistency, not convenience. He begins by declaring that self-discipline is the foundation of character. It is what separates those who drift through life making excuses from those who design their futures. This truth echoes in every field, from the athlete training before dawn, to the entrepreneur working late into the night, to the student studying when no one is watching. Consider someone like Elon Musk. Regardless of how polarizing his personality might be, what's undeniable is his relentless discipline. Musk's 100-hour workweeks, his capacity to endure public criticism, and his long-term vision for humanity are rooted not in luck or genius alone, but in a fierce self-command, the ability to persist through pain, fatigue, and failure. Tracy's philosophy mirrors this reality. Talent sets the direction, but discipline fuels the journey. Tracy emphasizes that the first step towards self-discipline is taking complete responsibility for your life. The instant you stop blaming external forces, the economy, your upbringing, your employer, your circumstances, you reclaim the steering wheel. This mindset is liberating because it transforms you from a victim of conditions into the architect of possibilities. As he writes, you are always free to choose. This concept resonates strongly in a world that often glorifies quick excuses. For instance, when the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted economies, many professionals lost jobs and stability. Yet, some used the crisis as a catalyst for reinvention. Across the United States, countless people started online businesses, learned new skills, or transitioned into remote work. Globally, creators like Khaby Lame, who lost his factory job in Italy, turned to TikTok and became one of the most followed influencers on earth, simply by acting when others froze. That's self-discipline in action. Responding instead of reacting, creating instead of complaining. Once responsibility is accepted, discipline begins to compound. Tracy compares it to a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. Just as a bodybuilder must endure discomfort to grow, success demands sacrifice. The person you become is forged in the moments when you resist temptation and act with purpose. This philosophy directly contradicts the modern culture of instant gratification, where attention spans are short and rewards are expected immediately. Yet, those who practice delayed gratification often become the ones the world later celebrates. One of Tracy's most profound ideas is the law of cause and effect, that every action has a consequence, and success is not mysterious but mechanical. If you discipline yourself to study more, work harder, and persist longer, success is inevitable. This principle is not motivational fluff, it's mathematical. For example, Warren Buffett's wealth wasn't the result of luck, but the compounding effect of disciplined investing and learning over decades. He reads several hours daily, not because he feels like it, but because he knows results follow from habits. To develop this kind of discipline, Tracy suggests you must first define clear goals. Self-discipline without purpose is like running on a treadmill, a lot of motion, no direction. When you know what you're after, the sacrifices become meaningful. Tracy insists on writing goals down daily, a practice confirmed by behavioral science as one of the strongest predictors of achievement. The act of writing reinforces focus and accountability. Think of Serena Williams. Her rise to become one of the greatest tennis players ever wasn't born of fleeting motivation, but consistent goal-oriented discipline. Even after setbacks, injuries, and criticism, she returned stronger each time. because the goal was always crystal clear. Similarly, Tracy emphasizes that discipline turns dreams into structured action, and structured action turns impossibility into inevitability. But discipline also requires saying no, not just to distractions, but to comfort. Every decision carries an opportunity cost. When you choose ease, you lose growth. When you choose growth, you delay comfort. Tracy frames this as the pain principle. You must choose between the pain of discipline now or the pain of regret later. The difference is that the pain of discipline weighs ounces, while the pain of regret weighs tons. This principle resonates deeply in modern society, especially in America's gig economy and startup culture. For example, Jeff Bezos famously worked long hours at Amazon's inception, packaging books in a garage with no guarantee of success. Today, he credits those early years of sacrifice as the cornerstone of Amazon's trillion-dollar success. Every sleepless night became an investment in future freedom. Tracy teaches that discipline multiplies self-respect. When you control your behavior, your confidence grows because you trust yourself. Every small act of discipline, waking early, keeping promises, saving money, reinforces your sense of mastery. Over time, this transforms your self-image from I can't to I will. And as your self-image elevates, your external world follows. One of the most relevant modern illustrations of this comes from the world of health and fitness influencers. Take people like David Goggins, once obese, depressed, and broke, who reinvented himself through brutal self-discipline. His mantra, "Stay hard," echoes Tracy's philosophy. Success begins when comfort ends. Goggins didn't find discipline. He built it one painful mile at a time. The same principle applies universally, whether in business, relationships, or personal growth. Tracy's next vital insight is that discipline creates freedom. Though the word discipline often sounds restrictive, its true power lies in liberation. When you discipline your spending, you achieve financial independence. When you discipline your time, you buy freedom to live meaningfully. When you discipline your emotions, you're no longer a prisoner of impulse. True freedom is not the absence of constraint, but the mastery of it. A practical illustration lies in how athletes and artists operate. Musicians like Beyoncé or Ed Sheeran practice thousands of hours before stepping onto global stages. Their fame looks glamorous, but behind it lies routine, waking up early, rehearsing relentlessly, studying their craft. It's that invisible discipline that sustains their visible success. In essence, the first part of Tracy's philosophy can be distilled into a chain reaction. Responsibility breeds discipline. Discipline builds character. Character fuels confidence. And confidence creates success. Yet, this success is not an endpoint. It's a continuous process of refinement. Every achievement sets a new standard, and every standard demands higher discipline. Tracy warns that complacency is the silent killer of progress. Once you stop pushing yourself, you begin sliding backward. This truth is evident in organizations too. Companies that remain disciplined in innovation survive. Those that get comfortable disappear. Kodak, once a titan, failed to adapt because it abandoned the discipline of innovation. Meanwhile, Apple under Steve Jobs and later Tim Cook maintained an almost obsessive focus on excellence, a corporate form of self-discipline. The result? One company vanished. The other shaped the modern digital age. Tracy's philosophy is timeless because it applies across all human effort. The same principle that governs personal growth governs nations. Societies that reward discipline and merit flourish. Those that indulge excuses decline. South Korea, for instance, rose from post-war poverty to technological dominance through decades of disciplined education, work ethic, and national focus. Similarly, individuals can rise from any condition if they harness the same energy within themselves. Ultimately, Tracy concludes that success is not about being extraordinary. It's about being consistent. The disciplined person doesn't rely on motivation or mood. They rely on habits. Discipline is not an act of willpower alone, but a structured system of choices that compound daily. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes natural. As Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Tracy's modern interpretation of that ancient wisdom forms the essence of no excuses. The moment you internalize that discipline is the root of freedom, your approach to every sphere of life changes. You stop waiting for inspiration to strike and start creating the conditions where excellence becomes inevitable. Brian Tracy stresses that success in any area, career, money, or personal fulfillment, rests on the same foundation: doing the right things the right way, consistently over time. 1. Discipline and personal mastery. Tracy argues that all external success begins with internal order. If your thoughts are scattered, your results will be too. A disciplined mind becomes the command center for a disciplined life. He urges readers to practice mental discipline, the ability to think clearly, control emotions, and stay solution-focused no matter the situation. Think about it. In today's hyper-connected world, distraction is the new addiction. Notifications, endless scrolling, and information overload fragment our focus. Tracy's teachings feel almost prophetic here. He insists that the ability to concentrate deeply on one task until completion is a superpower in the modern era. Research from Harvard and Stanford confirms that multitasking reduces efficiency and increases stress. Yet disciplined focus, what Cal Newport calls deep work, creates exponential productivity. A real-world example is Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft. When Nadella took over in 2014, Microsoft was stagnating. Too bureaucratic, too complacent. Through mental discipline and emotional intelligence, Nadella shifted the company's entire culture toward a growth mindset. He emphasized humility, learning, and focus on purpose. In less than a decade, Microsoft reinvented itself, leading in AI, cloud computing, and collaboration technology. That turnaround was not magic, it was leadership rooted in consistent, self-disciplined thinking. Tracy also emphasizes emotional discipline. The ability to remain calm under pressure separates great leaders from reactive ones. Anger, fear, and frustration are natural, but when they dominate your behavior, they sabotage progress. Emotional maturity means doing what's effective, not what feels good. This idea resonates powerfully in our polarized times, where outrage often replaces rational discourse. The disciplined person rises above the noise. Take Michelle Obama as an example. Throughout her public life, she faced relentless criticism. Yet her calm, measured, and consistent composure not only disarmed hostility, but elevated her respect worldwide. Her discipline wasn't passive. It was powerful self-control that inspired millions. As Tracy would put it, you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond, and that response determines everything. From emotional discipline grows habitual discipline. Tracy points out that 95% of what you do is governed by habit. Successful people simply develop better habits, and those habits protect them when motivation fades. If you wake up early, plan your day, and act decisively long enough, it becomes automatic. Like brushing your teeth, discipline ceases to feel difficult. It becomes who you are. This leads directly to one of Tracy's most transformative lessons: discipline your time. Time is the ultimate equalizer. Billionaires and beggars each have 24 hours per day, yet how they use it defines their destinies. Tracy teaches the principle of time investment, treating every hour as an asset that must yield return. He often quotes the adage, 1 hour per day of study in your field will make you a national expert in 5 years. The compounding effect of consistent learning separates mediocrity from mastery. One striking example is Kobe Bryant. Known as the Black Mamba, Bryant was famous not just for talent, but for his obsession with practice. He'd arrive at the gym hours before teammates and leave long after. His Mamba mentality embodied what Tracy calls the discipline of excellence, setting standards so high they pull you forward. Kobe once said, "Rest at the end, not in the middle." That single phrase encapsulates the entire spirit of no excuses. Tracy expands this principle beyond performance. It applies to character, too. Honesty, integrity, punctuality, and reliability are disciplines of the spirit. Each time you keep a promise, you strengthen your self-respect. Each time you break one, you erode it. People of discipline become magnets for trust. Whether in business partnerships or friendships, reliability creates influence. Tracy reminds us that reputation is built one disciplined decision at a time. 2. Discipline and financial freedom. Once you've mastered yourself, the next frontier is mastering your finances. Tracy bluntly states that financial independence is not a matter of luck. It's the product of disciplined earning, saving, and investing. He introduces the law of accumulation. Every small step toward your financial goal compounds into massive results over time. In an age where consumer culture promotes instant gratification, this principle feels almost rebellious. Tracy contrasts the spenders and the savers. Spenders seek emotional satisfaction today and pay for it tomorrow. Savers sacrifice small pleasures now for freedom later. The discipline to delay gratification becomes the foundation of wealth. Consider the story of Ronald Redd, a Vermont janitor who quietly saved and invested throughout his life. When he died in 2014, he left behind an $8 million fortune, built not on high income, but on consistency. Reed practiced exactly what Tracy teaches. Live below your means, save first, spend last, and let compound interest work its magic. His story stunned Wall Street, but perfectly illustrated a simple truth. Discipline beats brilliance when applied consistently. Tracy's financial lessons mirror those of modern financial educators like Dave Ramsey and Robert Kiyosaki. Spend less than you earn, avoid debt, invest wisely, and focus on long-term gains. Yet his unique contribution lies in linking these practices to character. Financial discipline isn't just about money. It's about integrity, foresight, and maturity. Every dollar you manage reflects your ability to manage yourself. He also insists that continuous learning is a financial weapon. The economy changes rapidly, and those who stop learning become obsolete. Tracy urges readers to become lifelong students of their craft. Take courses, read daily, seek mentors. In America's modern gig economy, adaptability is survival. Workers who invest time in upgrading skills, like mastering AI tools or data analytics, position themselves for opportunity instead of unemployment. This principle applies globally too. In Africa, Asia, and Latin America, millions are turning to online learning platforms to upgrade skills, start digital businesses, or enter global freelance markets. Their discipline to self-educate amid adversity is transforming communities. Tracy's timeless truth holds. If you discipline yourself to learn, the world becomes your marketplace. Another critical financial lesson Tracy emphasizes is discipline in goal setting. He recommends writing down clear financial targets, income, savings, and investment goals, then reviewing them daily. This repetition programs the subconscious mind to align behavior with vision. Modern neuroscience supports this. What you visualize consistently, your brain starts seeking evidence for. In simple terms, the more you focus on financial freedom, the more opportunities you'll see to achieve it. He illustrates this principle through the story of Jim Carrey, who once wrote himself a $10 million check for acting services rendered, dated 5 years into the future. He kept it in his wallet and visualized success daily. Years later, he earned that exact amount for Dumb and Dumber. While Tracy isn't preaching magical thinking, he'd say Carrey's visualization created clarity, which directed disciplined action. The dream worked because the work followed. Discipline with money also means discipline with emotion, resisting greed and fear. The financial markets are driven by these two forces, and those who master their impulses outperform those who chase hype. Legendary investor Warren Buffett embodies this perfectly. When markets panic, Buffett stays calm. When others chase trends, he patiently waits. His famous quote, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful," reflects emotional discipline in its purest form. Tracy's ultimate message here is that wealth is not an end, but a tool for freedom and contribution. The disciplined person uses money to create stability, not status, to serve others, not enslave themselves to lifestyle inflation. In a world obsessed with appearance, that quiet self-control is the new luxury. 3. Discipline in relationships and leadership. After mastering the self and one's finances, Tracy turns to the final pillar of life, relationships. He teaches that success without human connection is hollow. Discipline here means treating people with respect, empathy, and consistency, even when it's inconvenient. Relationships, he says, thrive not on passion, but on predictable effort, showing up, listening, and acting with integrity. Many marriages, friendships, and partnerships fail not because love disappears, but because discipline does. The discipline to communicate kindly, forgive quickly, and keep promises is what sustains love and trust over decades. This idea mirrors the philosophy of relationship experts like John Gottman, who found that the most stable relationships are built on small, consistent acts of respect rather than grand romantic gestures. Tracy would agree. In love as in work, daily discipline beats sporadic emotion. On a larger scale, leadership is simply discipline multiplied. Great leaders model the behavior they expect. Tracy emphasizes that people don't follow titles, they follow examples. The disciplined leader creates a culture of accountability and excellence. Think of Tim Cook, who took over Apple after Steve Jobs. He didn't try to imitate Jobs' charisma. Instead, he applied quiet discipline, focusing on supply chain precision, ethical sourcing, and operational mastery. The result? Apple's valuation skyrocketed while maintaining global integrity. Leadership discipline also means confronting uncomfortable truths. Tracy insists that procrastinating on tough decisions corrodes credibility. Whether firing a toxic employee, admitting a mistake, or setting firm boundaries, the courageous act is often the disciplined one. Weak leaders seek popularity. Strong ones seek progress. One compelling example is Jacinda Ardern, former Prime Minister of New Zealand. Her leadership during crises such as the Christchurch attack and the pandemic was marked by empathy balanced with firmness. She communicated clearly, acted decisively, and stayed grounded. That combination of heart and discipline earned her global respect. Tracy would call her a model of emotional and moral discipline in leadership. Tracy's relational discipline extends to forgiveness too. Holding grudges drains mental energy. The disciplined mind lets go, not out of weakness, but out of self-respect. Forgiveness frees the forgiver, allowing focus to return to what matters. He reminds us that resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. In the long run, success and peace belong to those who discipline their hearts as much as their minds. Finally, Tracy warns that the ultimate test of discipline is persistence, the refusal to quit when the world tells you to stop. Every great achievement passes through the valley of discouragement. Whether you're an entrepreneur facing rejection, an artist enduring criticism, or a student struggling with failure, discipline means showing up anyway. Thomas Edison conducted over 1,000 failed experiments before inventing the light bulb. When asked how it felt to fail that many times, he replied, "I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps." That mindset captures the spirit of no excuses. Success is not about perfection, but persistence. Modern examples abound. Entrepreneurs like Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, faced ridicule before revolutionizing an industry. Netflix faced near bankruptcy before redefining entertainment. In each case, discipline, not luck, turned adversity into advantage. Brian Tracy's closing argument in No Excuses is both sobering and liberating. Success is never accidental, and failure is rarely mysterious. Everything we experience, our health, wealth, happiness, and reputation, reflects the cumulative effect of disciplined or undisciplined choices. The principle is simple yet profound. You cannot escape the consequences of your habits, but you can shape them. The ultimate reward of discipline, he explains, is peace of mind. When you live responsibly, you no longer need to lie, hide, or make excuses. Every day becomes a reflection of conscious choices. This sense of alignment between your actions and values produces genuine happiness, not the fleeting thrill of achievement, but the calm satisfaction of integrity. Tracy draws a critical distinction here. Pleasure is momentary. Happiness is enduring. Pleasure often comes from ease, scrolling endlessly, indulging, delaying responsibility. But happiness comes from progress. It's the satisfaction of knowing you grew, learned, or contributed, even when it was hard. That's why disciplined people often appear happier. They've earned their self-respect. One of the book's most powerful illustrations of this truth is the concept of the success paradox, that the things which are easy to do in the short term, like sleeping in, overspending, or procrastinating, lead to difficulty in the long term, while the things that are hard in the short term, like saving, exercising, studying, lead to freedom and joy later. Every day, we're faced with this paradox, and every decision becomes a vote for our future selves. In this sense, discipline isn't punishment. It's an act of love for your future self. 1. Discipline and the pursuit of happiness. Tracy connects discipline to mental health and emotional well-being. He notes that anxiety often comes from avoidance. When we procrastinate or evade responsibility, our subconscious mind knows it. This creates internal conflict, the silent guilt that erodes peace. The antidote is simple but powerful: action. Doing what you know you must do dissolves anxiety and replaces it with relief. Consider the modern epidemic of burnout and stress. Many people chase comfort but end up overwhelmed because they lack structure. Discipline, paradoxically, creates mental freedom. When your day has order, your mind has space. The disciplined individual doesn't waste energy on indecision or regret. As Tracy says, every minute spent in planning saves 10 minutes in execution. A compelling modern example is James Clear, author of Atomic Habits. His philosophy, that small, consistent improvements compound into massive change, perfectly echoes Tracy's. Clear's global success wasn't built on intensity, but on disciplined simplicity. Focus on systems, not goals. Show up daily, not occasionally. Millions have transformed their lives by following that principle. It's proof that discipline is the modern language of progress. Tracy's insights also extend into health and physical vitality. He insists that self-discipline begins in the body because your physical state affects everything else. The discipline to eat well, exercise regularly, and rest properly isn't vanity. It's strategy. A strong body supports a strong mind. In an age of sedentary work and digital exhaustion, this message is more relevant than ever. Take Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, whose career spans wrestling, acting, and entrepreneurship. His success isn't just charisma. It's built on a foundation of grueling daily workouts, strict diet, and mental discipline. He often says, discipline is the strongest form of self-love. It's ignoring current pleasures for future strength. That statement could have been written by Brian Tracy himself. Tracy also touches on the discipline of gratitude. It may sound paradoxical to pair discipline with gratitude, but he explains that happiness requires intentional focus on what's good, not what's missing. The human mind naturally fixates on problems. Gratitude retrains it toward abundance. Keeping a daily gratitude list, or simply pausing to appreciate what you have, is an act of mental discipline that rewires your emotional baseline. This aligns with research from the University of California, where studies by Dr. Robert Emmons found that people who practiced daily gratitude journaling experienced higher levels of optimism, better sleep, and greater overall happiness. Tracy's advice anticipates this psychology. Gratitude is the disciplined management of attention. 2. Discipline and long-term success. Tracy makes a bold statement. The future belongs to the competent. Competence, however, doesn't come from natural talent. It comes from relentless, disciplined improvement. The person who dedicates 1 hour daily to learning their field becomes an expert within 5 years. That's not motivational theory. It's statistical truth. He illustrates this with the concept of the 10,000-hour rule, which Malcolm Gladwell later popularized in Outliers. Mastery in any domain, whether it's music, medicine, programming, or sales, requires roughly 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. Tracy reminds us that those hours don't appear magically. They're carved out of ordinary days through extraordinary discipline. Let's consider Taylor Swift, for instance. From writing songs in her bedroom as a teenager to becoming one of the most powerful figures in modern music, Her story is a masterclass in self-discipline. She writes daily, revises endlessly, and controls her brand with strategic precision. Even amid fame, she continues to refine her craft. Tracy would use her as a living example of how consistency compounds into global impact. This principle extends to organizations and nations, too. Japan's post-war rise to industrial power was driven by Kaizen, the discipline of continuous improvement. Toyota's global success didn't come from bursts of innovation, but from small, sustained refinements over decades. That's the organizational embodiment of Tracy's message. Excellence is never an event, always a process. Tracy then moves into a crucial dimension of success: resilience through failure. Discipline is most tested not when things go well, but when they collapse. Every setback becomes a mirror, revealing whether your habits are strong enough to carry you through chaos. He points to the law of averages. In any pursuit, you'll fail many times before succeeding once. The disciplined person understands this and stays the course. Entrepreneurs, for instance, are statistically more likely to fail multiple times before building a sustainable business. But those who persist, like Steve Jobs, who was fired from Apple before returning to transform it, turn failure into fuel. Tracy insists that perseverance is not about blind stubbornness. It's about faith in the long-term power of disciplined effort. This attitude has a global dimension too. Across developing economies, millions of small entrepreneurs, street vendors, artisans, coders, embody this principle daily. They don't have perfect conditions, yet through disciplined persistence, they create value, jobs, and dignity. Tracy's message is universal. Discipline is the currency of progress, no matter where you start. 3. Discipline, legacy, and the meaning of life. As the book draws to its conclusion, Tracy elevates discipline from a personal virtue to a moral responsibility. To live with discipline, he argues, is to live with purpose. The undisciplined life is reactive, drifting from impulse to impulse. The disciplined life is proactive, anchored to mission. He asks readers a sobering question: what do you want to be remembered for? Every disciplined act is a brick in the architecture of your legacy. Whether you're raising children, building a business, or writing a book, the consistency of your effort becomes your invisible monument. Real legacy builders understand this deeply. Consider Nelson Mandela, who endured 27 years in prison and emerged without hatred. His discipline of forgiveness and commitment to peace reshaped an entire nation. Mandela's greatness wasn't just moral, it was systematic. Every day, behind bars, he exercised, read, and prepared mentally for leadership. That's the essence of no excuses. Doing what you can, with what you have, where you are, even when no one is watching. Tracy calls this the law of correspondence. Your outer world reflects your inner world. The state of your finances, relationships, and achievements mirrors the level of discipline within you. Change your inner habits, and your outer circumstances must follow. This isn't mysticism, it's psychology. The disciplined mind organizes the external world through clarity, focus, and persistence. At this level, self-discipline becomes spiritual. Tracy doesn't preach religion, but underscores that a truly successful life must transcend material success. Fulfillment comes from contribution, using your discipline to serve others. Whether that's mentoring a young person, volunteering, or building systems that outlive you, legacy grows from the disciplined choice to add value beyond self-interest. A modern example is Melinda Frenchgates, who has dedicated her wealth and influence to advancing global health and women's empowerment. Her structured, data-driven philanthropy reflects what Tracy calls disciplined compassion, the ability to care deeply but act strategically. That blend of heart and discipline is how real change endures. Tracy reminds us that even in the face of mortality, discipline brings peace. He quotes the Stoic idea: "He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe." When your days are guided by clear priorities and steady effort, regret fades. Life becomes a coherent story instead of a series of accidents. 4. Living a no-excuses life. In his final message, Brian Tracy returns to the book's title, No Excuses. Excuses, he says, are the language of failure. Each one transfers power from you to circumstance. The moment you say, I can't, you surrender control. But when you say, I will find a way, you activate creativity, resilience, and strength you didn't know you had. He encourages readers to conduct a discipline audit. Look at your life and identify where you make excuses, health, finances, time management, relationships, and replace those excuses with commitments. No one transforms overnight, but daily micro-disciplines, showing up on time, reading for 30 minutes, saving a fixed amount, build unstoppable momentum. Tracy likens self-discipline to compound interest. Each day's discipline adds a fraction to your power. Over months and years, those fractions multiply into mastery. The secret is consistency, not intensity. As he famously says, there are no unrealistic goals, only unrealistic deadlines. To bring this philosophy into today's context, imagine a young American starting a business from their phone, or a Nigerian student learning AI online, or a single parent in Chicago balancing work and education. In each story, the world offers excuses, lack of resources, unfair systems, limited time. But discipline rewrites the narrative. The disciplined person always finds leverage in limitation. Even in technology-driven times where algorithms and automation dominate, Tracy's message stands firm. Discipline is the one thing machines can't replace. It's the distinctly human capacity to choose growth over comfort, service over selfishness, and action over apathy. In a society that rewards shortcuts, discipline has become a form of rebellion. Yet it's the quiet rebellion that changes everything. Every act of self-control, reading instead of scrolling, saving instead of splurging, forgiving instead of resenting, builds invisible strength. Over years, that strength becomes character, and character becomes destiny. Conclusion: the architecture of a disciplined life. At its heart, No Excuses is not just a manual for success. It's a declaration of human potential. Brian Tracy dismantles the myth that greatness belongs to a chosen few. Instead, he shows that discipline is the universal equalizer. Whether you're a CEO in New York, a teacher in Nairobi, or a student in Lagos, the principles are identical. Take responsibility, focus on what matters, do the hard things first, and keep going long after others stop. Each lesson in the book builds naturally into the next. Responsibility gives birth to self-discipline, that self-discipline strengthens character. Character produces confidence. Confidence drives achievement. Achievement creates freedom. Freedom opens the door to contribution and legacy. Tracy's philosophy is circular and self-sustaining. Discipline creates success, and success reinforces discipline. This is why disciplined people seem lucky. They've created conditions where luck can find them. The modern world often celebrates talent, privilege, or charisma, but Tracy reminds us that discipline outperforms all three. It doesn't discriminate, it doesn't depend on background, and it's always within your control. That's what makes it the greatest power you'll ever own. To live without excuses is to live with dignity. It's to wake up each morning knowing that your future is being built, one disciplined choice at a time. And perhaps the greatest proof of Tracy's message lies not in theory, but in the millions who've applied it. People who've transformed debt into wealth, chaos into order, and dreams into daily realities. Because in the end, success doesn't belong to the fastest, the strongest, or the luckiest. It belongs to those who, day after day, do the right thing, even when no one's watching. That is the power of self-discipline. That is the essence of No Excuses. If this message resonated with you, subscribe and join us for more wisdom that fuels growth.